You almost want to be trying to solve problems the technology can't today, because you'll be the first mover when the technology is ready.
All right, friends, today's guest has helped turn secondhand into a mainstream habit. He has spent 15 years at ThredUp, from early stage builds to AI-powered resale platform that has millions of items flowing through it, and thousands of new ones that go through intake, grading, pricing, and discovery every single day. Our guest today is the one that runs product and engineering, and he ships what customers actually feel. Joining us today is Dan DeMeyere, the Chief Product Officer and Technology Officer at ThredUp. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. This is part of our collaboration with Shoptalk Fall. Very much looking forward to seeing you there as well. Let's jump into the conversation. Would love to kick it off by learning more about your journey. You've been with ThredUp pretty much since the inception of the brand. What has that been like, and how did you evolve the product? Because to me, ThredUp very much feels like a technology product. It's the technology and the interaction and just how it's handled on both sides that makes it very sticky. What has that journey been like, and what have you kind of learned along the way?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I joined ThredUp about 15 years ago, and I was one of the first 10 employees. We realized that we were on the right side of history in terms of fashion, waste, and sustainability, but the consumer was not there yet. It was a little bit like paddling to catch this wave as a surfer, paddling for years, and the wave's just not coming. Those early years were the struggle to find product market fit. I think people at ThredUp are very passionate about sustainability. And we thought that if we led with that, hey, this is so much better than buying new. We can work to eliminate the negative connotation associated with buying used clothes online, and scale would happen and magical. The reality was very different. What we found was that early on, sustainability was not the primary driver. Even if someone cares about the planet, knows that, for example, fashion is the number 2 polluting industry in the world, which is a crazy fact within itself. Only oil and energy is polluting more than fashion is. That people would want to come to this platform because it's like the smart thing to do for your wallet and for the planet. We did not find product market fit. And we had to work a lot very early on to better understand the needs of both the buyers and the sellers. So we have a marketplace. It's double-sided. We started as a peer-to-peer marketplace, pure technology. You don't have any physical overhead, and you can leverage technology to great scale in a peer-to-peer marketplace. And there are a bunch of problems that we had back in those early days. I think one of them is that in a peer-to-peer marketplace, you're really reliant upon your customers to create a really great experience for your other customers. If you buy something from a seller, that seller has to send what they listed, that the quality is right, that it's accurate, that they send it promptly, that they package it thoughtfully. If there's something wrong with it, peer-to-peer disputes. There's just a lot that is not ideal, especially in a world with Amazon during this time. I was moving towards 2-day shipping, same-day shipping, returns on everything. That was really hard to compete with a clunky peer-to-peer experience. The first very big pivot we did was we said, hey, buyers and sellers in the peer-to-peer marketplace for used clothing, there are so many constraints. This is not growing. We have to kind of flip the problem on its head. And we said, hey, sellers, I know there's a lot of friction to sell on this platform. How about we send you a bag? You fill it up with clothes. You send it in. We'll do all the work for you. We'll eliminate all the friction for a seller to list their clothes on our platform. For the buyer, we can do the shipping and we can offer returns. And so we'll try to make buying used online as seamless as buying new. And so we did this probably 2 to 3 years into the company's history. And it was a test. We had this really small office in San Francisco, comically small. I remember the first day, like 2 or 3 bags of clothes arrived. And we're like, oh, people are doing this. And the second day, it's like 10, 15 bags. By the end of the first week, we literally do not know where to put these bags. It is from the floor to the ceiling full of bags. And we're like, okay. Part of it is, yes, we're onto something. Like, this is big. I think this is the future for us. And then the other part was like, what do we do now? And so that was sort of the big unlock on the seller side, which was that people really value their time. And so if you can provide a very convenient experience that both saves the customer time and enables them to make some money and do good for the planet, there's a really strong customer need to be met there. And so that part of our business in many ways was unlocked in the early days and has been ever since. We don't spend to get sellers, to acquire sellers, or spend to get sellers to come to our platform. It's all organic. The buyer side, I would say, took us a little bit longer to really unlock. We were sustainability forward on the website and it just does not convert. It took us years to realize that you have to meet the customer where they were. And For our customers, that is value. So it's the brands they love up to 70, 80% off. That is going to convert customers more than, the right thing for your wallet and for the planet. And so sustainability may be the second thing that's most important for the customer, maybe the third thing, maybe it's even like deeper down in their list of needs. Even though we thought this is the future and we are on the right side of history, we still have to come to where the customer is today. And the reality is they have a lot of choices to buy clothes online. When we decided to start accepting this inventory, we opened up this dingy little warehouse in Folsom Street in San Francisco. That quickly ran out of space and got a distribution center in San Leandro across the bay. Now we have 4 largely automated distribution centers located across the US that can house over 5 million items. And to your point earlier at the beginning of the call, we're processing over 100,000 items a day. This is high velocity at scale resale. It's been an incredible journey. I would say it's definitely a roller coaster. There are some pretty high highs and some low lows, like most startups. It's been an incredible journey.
Well, I think about the customers, though, you probably have some overlap, right? So the ones that are trying to sell clothes probably end up on the website and they're like, wait, I sold a bunch of stuff, but now I also need to get a bunch of things. So there's an interesting customer journey overlap that you probably see from your perspective. I find that pretty interesting as well.
You would think that, and that is very intuitive. However, the overlap is a minority of our customers' overlap.
Really?
If you think about the people who value time and convenience over making the most money possible from their clothes, which is our seller, and you think about the people who are trying to get the brands they love at great value, it's a little bit less of an income demographic overlap. And so our sellers and buyers overlap is about a third. Most of our sellers are not buyers and most of our buyers are not sellers.
That's super interesting. So it's almost back to the point that you were making. When you're trying to unlock the next level of growth, you're realizing that unit economics will not make sense if you keep going down the sustainability path, because then you are attracting the same market that is basically trying to sell and get rid of their clothing because now they're investing in new pieces, versus the people that are buying are probably trying to acquire pieces that give them a great bargain. That's super interesting. One of the things I'd love for you to dive into is building from a scrappy marketplace into this category defining platform. There are a lot of other companies that play in the space, but not truly to the degree that ThredUp does. And you made the movement for resale mainstream. You went through the early build, scale up, and now you're in that AI-driven platform phase. What, from your perspective, defined each one of these, and what have you had to keep constant, and what have you had to unlearn?
That's a great question. The thing that has to be constant is the customer job to be done. It's something that we obsess about a lot internally at ThredUp. When you have technology like AI, that can be a game changer. And granted, AI in loosely from an umbrella term has been around for decades, but generative AI in particular is very new. Your mind has all these possibilities in terms of how you can leverage that technology on behalf of the business or behalf of the customer. And you can get excited, but I think you have to be grounded in that customer job to be done. There's Clay Christensen, who is a HBS professor who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, did this great course at HBS that was posted publicly. He has a book on it as well. It's all about understanding the customer job to be done. And when you're overserving a customer, underserving a customer, what their needs are, how to think about it. And we do obsess about that. There have been times when we do a hackathon and do something flashy, so cool. And then we're like, but is this an actual job for our customer? Are we making progress for them? Is this what they want? Or is this something that's novelty? So I would say that we have always had to keep constant is making sure that the technology intersects with the needs in a way that is making progress for the customer. I think that the one big unlearn early on was this notion that the peer-to-peer marketplace was the right way to unlock resale. Venture capitalists talk about peer-to-peer network effects being so strong, and the sort of the scale that you get for not having physical overhead and capex is so powerful to the P&L that we're like, it has to be peer-to-peer, but we just were not seeing the product market fit. We were not seeing the scale that was sort of meeting our ambition or our investors or board's ambition. And so that was the first thing. We're like, okay, we started as a peer-to-peer company. We were that way for years, and now we're going to completely change and pivot. So that was the first big unlearn and dive outside our comfort zone.
Yeah.
From there, I think that the thing that we also have to unlearn is that customers are evolving, customers are changing, and the norm is changing. I've been at the company for 15 years. We have 2 of the 3 original co-founders. They've been at the company for 15 years. And so we've, over the years, tried a lot of things, and we've A/B tested thousands, if not tens of thousands of different experiences and small tweaks to the interaction of our business and the customer. We have this internal notion of no sacred cows. Like you might say, join a company and you're like, hey, I have this idea. Oh, we tested that. It doesn't work. Our mindset is like, we have to be open to every time it could be different. Either the customer could be different. The execution previously could have been different. Just because we've tested something and the data didn't show that worked 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or even 1 year ago, does not mean that we have entered into that perfect place where now the customer is there, the technology is there. And I think with technology in particular, the way you enter into the solution space is dramatically different than it was 3 years ago. The toolbox that you have to solve problems is not what it was 18 months ago. And in some ways, even 6 months ago, you almost want to be working on problems where the technology is not there yet. You have high conviction that it's a real problem for the customer. The technology may not be there right now, but by the time you figure out the execution, the technology will be there because the rate of technology change is so fast that it will catch up to you. In some ways, you almost want to be trying to solve problems the technology can't today because you'll be the first mover when the technology is ready.
And maybe on that front, right? That first pivot of going from here to more asset-based logistics execution, you're saying, hey, put it in this box and ship it to this address. Now you are changing to put it in this box, bring it to me. But now I got to do all of these things. You go from that one warehouse to the next one, to the big one, to actually getting to 100,000 units a day. That's highly impressive to have 100,000 units a day and be able to process it. What was that journey like specifically on that, not the CX tech, but the actual, hey, I need a warehouse. Where do I go to start with this thing, right? Because in the first 10 packages, I can maybe manage it in Excel and then I can grow a little database. But now I got to look at efficiencies and execution processes. And to get to automation, that's got to be a journey. Like, what was that technological journey like?
It was a little bit like jumping out of an airplane and just having trust in ourselves that we're going to build or find a parachute before we hit the ground. The bags were coming. It filled up the office and then it was like trucks and trucks of bags. The company was very small at the time, about 15 people, and not one person at the company had operational experience. So there's no one that has run a distribution center before, nor has built automation technology to just power one in terms of like the processes and the flows of you receive something, you unpack it, you go through it, you have to have proper states and record keeping and so on. And so that was something where we were like, okay, we're going to learn on the fly, but we also need to augment the team with new talent. So we went out and we hired the person who built the automation for Netflix DVDs back in the day. Back in the Blockbuster days, Netflix wasn't streaming. You would choose what movies you wanted. They would mail those DVDs to you. And then you'd watch them and you'd return them. And it was like the subscription thing. But behind the scenes, Netflix had very sophisticated automation. So there weren't humans packing those DVDs to mail to you. And they had a number of distribution centers. And so for us, it was, we do not have this domain knowledge in-house. We have to go and find people that do. And so we were very lucky and we hired 2 very senior people from Netflix, one to run part of our engineering organization, one to run operations. And we just learned an incredible amount from them. But to your point, it was bumpy with the double-sided marketplace. The overall growth can be constrained if you don't have the buyers to meet the seller demand and vice versa. But with a managed marketplace like ours, the operational component can be the constraint as well. There were times when we had strong product market fit from sellers, bags were flowing in, we had strong demand, buyers were ready to purchase them, and we literally could not process the bags or the orders fast enough. We couldn't scale the human operations fast enough. To have outsized growth, every component of that marketplace has to be performing at a very high level. That operational side of it was challenging. We approached it very similar to how you would approach starting a company and being very scrappy in the startup way. Before we had today, where if you go to a distribution center today, it looks like Willy Wonka for clothes. There's clothes that are on hangers and they're being moved around, put on a mannequin, and the mannequin will spin around and you'll get a 360-degree, highly professional photography done on that item. Then it goes off and it flies away again. It is truly like Willy Wonka. But in the beginning, we're like, hey, we A, can't afford that. B, don't have the experience to do that. And so we're going to have to learn the hard way. And so we built the original itemization stations by hand. So we had wood and we were constructing it and we had iPhones and we were trying to automate them. It was very clunky, but you just kind of stay on it. At times, it was a lot of like little innovation where you're iterating on existing pain points. And then there were times it was a big innovation. We have the world's largest automated clothing carousel. And one of our distribution centers can hold millions of unique items. So if you go to the dry cleaners, for example, and you get your order, they press that little button and it goes around. We have the world's largest version of that. We have proprietary technology that we've deployed to orchestrate that. And so we can say like, hey, we want to ship out 1,000 orders right now. They all start flowing down from the carousels to our pack stations. And so it was like this journey that felt very humbling along the way. We approach it like a startup. We got some really good experience, but a lot of it we were just learning as we went.
This is highly impressive.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
In my mind, I see the Monsters Inc., where they have all the doors just going down the carousel. So that's in my mind, the complexity of that. Because when we take a look at a lot of fashion clothing brands, they have one type of shirt and then they have it in multiple sizes and et cetera. But for you, you're dealing with one specific shirt from one specific brand. And there is, I think the last stat that I saw was 4.5 million items that were listed on ThredUp. Just the sheer complexity of serving up or finding the right fit for someone and making sure that you help them make that purchase and convert and make the interaction from product perspective so well designed, I think is very impressive. I might have heard this maybe at Shoptalk last year, but I do remember it was maybe James talking about how you approach these problems as you try and think of the process of what would it take from operational perspective for you to go through the entire step and shave off seconds at a time. I think from warehouse operations perspective, that's truly impressive because as a customer, I don't have the time. Some people love selling stuff online. I hate that. So just the ability to here, please take my problems away and figure it out, which is, I think, a huge value add. I can see why that was a huge unlock for you guys, but it creates so much complexity on the back end. I'd love to tell us a little bit about, is there a metric or something that you look towards to see how well designed your product and your experience is to make sure that you have loyalty and repeat purchases and just people that feel very comfortable with shopping on ThredUp?
It is a hard problem to solve. I think a very natural tension that occurs within our operations is the concept of speed and productivity versus quality. James might have talked about seconds per item, which is a metric of how many seconds we spend on every item. When processing hundreds of thousands of items, we put online about 100,000 items a day, but we don't accept everything that's sent to us. We're processing and touching over 100,000 unique SKUs a day. Those seconds really add up and matter. You could have these incentives from a financial standpoint to spend as little amount of time as possible on every item. But from a customer experience standpoint, there's a trade-off. We have a very close relationship between our product organization and our operations organization. Our strategy planning, our roadmap planning happens in parallel, and we're constantly overlapping in terms of what do we think is the best thing for the business or our customer? Because a lot of times we need both teams to come together to create that value. So on the operations side, technology and automation has played a huge role in both increasing efficiency, but also accuracy. Humans are flawed. They make mistakes. And if you train models correctly and you put the right controls into place, automation machines can do things more consistently, faster, with greater accuracy. So there are some things that we have automated over time. And some of those were very natural in terms of very early on, we realized we can't do pricing manually. That's crazy. We have to automate that. And that was the first use of machine learning that we had. It's been in production for about 12 years now. It's much more sophisticated than what it was back then. But that was an example of we had this very burning scale need that we have to use technology to solve. But then you get into, hey, can a computer determine the color of this garment better than a human? Can use machine vision to determine the brand is by scanning the tag, as opposed to a human having to type that in. Those are some very sort of incremental improvements that matter from a customer standpoint. On the customer experience side, everything is unique. We don't skip steps because we can't say oh, we've seen this item before. We're going to kind of repost this one that was the same last time, because if you get it and it's off, if it was worn a little bit more, we erode customer trust. Trust is so important, especially in the use space. And so, yeah, it's definitely a problem when it comes to people being able to shop, being used to shopping new, an item, you can see it in any color, you can see it in any size, and you know exactly what the fit's going to be to this situation where it is relative to how many times it was worn, and you don't have it in every size, you don't have it in every color. And so on the product side, we have to become very clever for helping customers become confident with the potential fit and flatter of every item they come across. as well as the discovery process. You said it's 4.5 million. It's closer to 5 million unique SKUs right now. You come to the website and it's like entering into this ocean of inventory that's an inch deep. And you're like, well, where do I begin? You type in dresses and you get 80,000. You type in like Madewell jeans and you get 40,000. And so discovery is, and understanding the nuanced intent of every shopper, because it can be very different, is an important part of the product's job. And it's actually where AI has been most helpful for us over the last year. But to answer the question, it's technology on both customer-facing side of the business as well as the operational business. And we have to coordinate very closely together to make sure that we're either creating a lot of value for the customer or a lot of value for the business. In the perfect scenario, we're doing both. When we get it wrong, we offer returns.
Yeah, and speaking specifically to that, you kind of touched on how AI has been helpful on the CX side. You just recently shipped AI, right? That you can feel natural language search, chat, I think style conversation that you could be having with the agent, etc. Right? So can you speak a little bit more to that journey of like, okay, the news breaks, this thing is here, right? And there is a race to adoption. And you have to figure a way out to do this in a unique fashion, because for you to have shipped it right now means a lot of products are now coming out that are more commercially viable. You had to start doing the adoption much earlier on. Can you speak to the product itself, like how AI is implemented? And second, what was that technical journey like?
We shipped it a year ago. But we have about less than a month, we have some new things coming out that are AI driven in the product experience that are going to be really cool. I don't think they'll be live by Shoptalk, but shortly after. Our journey with generative AI started 2 years ago. And this is, I think, was when ChatGPT was starting to take off. And there was like this spawning of whether it's Anthropic or at the time, I think it was called Google Bard. There was this wave of like, hey, LLMs are very powerful. And then we started to get to a situation where it just wasn't just like text to text LLMs. They started to be like multimodal models. And no one was really using them in customer facing context outside of customer service. Internally, we were seeing this technology, and the push really came from James, our CEO. He had that vision of this is the future. We have to figure out what it means for resale. If we don't, someone could, and we could be left behind. So what we did was we got our strongest engineers, data scientists, and product designers all together on this team. We basically said, you do not have to worry about the business in terms of performance or anything like that. We are going to spend a month like deeply exploring this technology and thinking through how it could be most beneficial for ThredUp. And we did a bunch of prototyping. We did a lot of exploration, a lot of whiteboarding. And at the time, what we found was this notion of natural language and search and what we call internally visual search terms. It was hard to find what you're looking for unless you were like searching for a brand, a category, like very traditional taxonomy-based terms. Of course, our search worked well, but everyone's search works well when you say exactly what's in the database. But if you were saying like, hey, I want to search for cottagecore, I want to search for St. Patrick's Day, ugly Christmas sweater, none of those things are in our database. We don't have a human that knows what cottagecore is versus some other trend that is very new or very localized. But models do, which is crazy. We found that even these invented styles, like the one we talked about jokingly called mermaidcore, to our knowledge, is not a real thing, but the model could actually turn it into a real thing. And you search for it and you'd find swimwear that had scales and dresses that looked iridescent. It was crazy. All of us were mind blown by this. And we're like, okay, but is there a customer job to be done here? This is one of those rare situations where, yes, there was a job to be done. The customer was not ready for it. The customers were not really having crazy diversity of search terms. Nowhere else were people using this technology in fashion. And so we were like, okay, we are going to skate to where the puck is going to be in the future and hope that we can help educate the customer to get there, or they will get there on their own.
Without it hallucinating its way through. Right? So making up things. Yeah.
Yeah. And we are a public company, but we very much operate like a private startup. We are very risk tolerant and we move very fast. We did a month of prototyping and we're like, we think this is the way forward. We think this is going to be really powerful. Having it in production was then a matter of weeks. The use cases are really powerful. One of the things that's beneficial of having 5 million snowflakes is that we have something for everything. We can match any style. We can match any trend because we just have that ocean of inventory. But we had to create sophisticated technology to route out all the use cases. Some things are not visual. If you search for a brand, a material, a visual model is not going to pick up that this is 50% polyester. But if it doesn't have the logo, how does the visual technology know what the brand is? And so then we had to merge the best of traditional search with this new visual search We did that. This was the initial catalyst for us because we were loving it internally. Most of the employees at ThredUp are women. Our customers are basically 100% women. And people were just like loving this internally and they couldn't wait for it to get to customers. And the use cases went far beyond the customer facing side. Our marketing team was like, we can make amazing merchandising blocks because you can cut into these incredibly unique slivers of inventory. So we're like, okay, we're onto something. Let's do this. But also now it's time to bring the whole company along. We had this small tiger team to start and they were blazing a trail, but they were so deep in this technology and no one else was. So we started doing company-wide hackathons as often as like on a monthly basis. People are going to be adverse to saying, hey, the whole company is basically not working for a week because we're going to do a hackathon. We were that bullish on what AI was going to do for the future of our industry and for our company that we're like, we need to invest into this, invest everyone's time and energy and create the space for it. We had that visual search technology when we first launched it. Less than 10% of searches were what we consider like containing a visual search term. Now it's closer to 40%. So it's rapid adoption of searching in a very different way. And we built new experiences off this technology, the ability where we have image search. You can forward something from Instagram to our app, and then we will take it, figure out all of the clothes in it, and then match it against our existing inventory. We have style chat where you can invent a style. There's an agent behind the scenes. You invent a style, it creates a picture, and we're like, does it look like this? Does this sort of match your nerdy chic solar eclipse wear for your Austin trip? And you're like, yes. And then you can shop it with the same sort of underlying visual search technology. It started as a catalyst, it started as one team. And then when the conviction was there, the momentum started to build. And yeah, we've been off and running ever since.
From the customer experience side evolution, what about the internal side evolution of adoption of AI as far as developing new capabilities or time to deploy, time to make changes, or ideas being nurtured much quicker at this point? What has that adoption looked like? I'm sure you are going through a journey on that front as well, with arming people with tools, but also treading carefully.
So we are pushing everyone to embrace it. It's sort of a combination of a little bit of patience, but also not being afraid to tell people that like, hey, AI is not going to replace your job, but someone who knows how to use it well could. We started this year with a company-wide AI bootcamp that I ran with the purpose of demystifying generative AI and AI more broadly. And so that was something to like build everyone up, people who are non-technical around what is this technology? What is the history of it? Where are we at right now? And then eventually, like, what does it mean for you? So we would spend time with the customer service team, time with the growth marketing team, time with the creative team, and really help to empower people, both the knowledge and then the options of, hey, here are the companies that are like doing some really compelling AI offerings in your space. So that was one part of it. I would say on the engineering side and the product side, we were very early adopters and we have embraced it. And this technology is moving so fast. I would say some engineers a year ago would say, oh, productivity neutral. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes I just want to code. And now to a place of hooking it up to a Figma design and then, Claude with Cursor cranking out all the components for you and you're just reviewing the code. It's a very eye-opening moment where you're definitely all in. One day we're using Imagen, the next day something else. And so you always had to have this level of abstraction built into whatever you do with AI. The team started to build what they call the atomic building blocks. And the purpose was that these can be used with any model, any technology, basically building out our own custom AI toolbox that works for our systems, our applications, our architecture. And that has been huge, both one, in terms of being able to move fast and adopt to new models, new technologies, but then also you do a hackathon or something like that where you have a finite amount of time to build a prototype, to validate some hypothesis. You have all the building blocks there. You're not spending time building out the infrastructure, building out all the connections and the API integrations. It's all there. So you can just build and ideate in real time. And that has been a game changer for us. Our hackathons are wildly impressive what the team is able to do in under a week, that the whole company will come and join the share outs because we're able to build incredible experiences.
That sounds really interesting. Is that something that you share out with the public as well, or is that something very internal to the organization?
It's very internal. Or maybe our board knows about some of the most compelling prototypes, but it's internal.
Yeah, maybe when it goes general availability, that's where you call out, be like, hey, this actually came out of a hackathon. Kudos to that team. I have had a similar experience with developers within the team. I have the engineers essentially going, there is no way I can do this. What it can do in an hour would probably take me a couple of days. And I think pretty much everyone's come on the other side, but that has required us trying to figure out that balance between changing models and the output and the results. How do you even validate? So are we going to stick to the old model? Where do we go with the new model? What's the impact of the new models? Creating a test bed of saying every time a foundational tech is changing, let's look at the output results to make a determination what direction we are going to end up going, because the dust is not settled and won't be settled for a while, it seems.
I agree. And I think it's more about making sure the team has the right mental model for how to think about AI today and in the future for them and our technology and the customer than it is about this moment in time, this use case, this model, this integration. So if the team has the right mental model and the culture is there to experiment, to learn, to go through J curves, I think that has been a very big thing. We've been very patient with the team, but also trying to communicate that it's okay to go through a J curve. Your productivity will dip before it gets better as you learn how to reinvent your craft in an AI way. I completely agree. Everyone's craft is a little bit different, and everyone is going to have a different way that they want to use this to create value, to make things, to be a maker. We give a lot of autonomy to the team. We give them kind of like blank check budgets of you can work with any model, any technology you want to, but we are all aligned in like, what is the outcome we're trying to drive here? And how can we be helpful and empower you along that journey? But your journey is going to be unique, and we're here to help you along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Coming from innovation space and having run hackathons myself, I find it really exciting where the type of hackathons you can run at this stage. I think one of the things that Ninaad and I find really exciting is when we do AI accelerators. And similar to what you talked about, try and help teams figure out what are some of the AI use cases that each individual teams can actually think through and make them come to life. I'd be curious, how do you keep that culture and the communication beyond the hackathons? How do you keep innovation alive? Because it has to be nurtured, right? It can't just be like a twice a year hackathon. You have to build it into their KPIs or OKRs or whatever models you use, but a way for people to feel like they're connected to and driving towards that growth of innovation within the organization. So I'd be very curious about how you approach that and how you keep that alive, acting as a startup when you have matured beyond that. There might be some corporate processes that make it harder.
Yeah, it is very intentional how we put energy towards making this happen. One of them is ingrained in our culture. One of our cultural values is infinite learning. And when we hire, we are looking for people who are what we consider like infinitely curious. We want people who are humble, that sort of are always asking questions, who are always trying to learn more, and also know that there is a better version of self that they can evolve to over time. People who think that they come and they already know everything and they are already awesome, that's just not who we want. Technology's changed. Like back 10 years ago, it was like, oh, different programming languages and different frameworks are going to come in and out of favor. Now it's the technology is changing at sometimes like mind-numbing rate where every day there's like some announcements coming out. And so part of this is like on the cultural side, hiring side, and making sure you have the right people in the team. From a leadership standpoint, you have to create the space for people to do this. And that means that you have to make some hard trade-offs. For us, when we do hackathons, nothing is going to happen for our roadmaps during this time. People just have a really hard time committing at that level. I think a big thing is you have to create the space, this environment where it's okay to fail, it's okay to struggle. We want to give everyone the resources. We also want to give everyone a lot of optionality. You have to have the right people. And then you have to stay on top of it. If you're organizing 50, 60, 70 people to do a hackathon, there's a lot from a leadership standpoint. When are we doing it? What are the themes? How do we help to make sure that everyone has the resources they need to succeed? You have to make it a first-class citizen internally.
That's a great. Dan, I'd like to switch gears and maybe let's talk a little bit about resale-as-a-service. This is a trend that we see from a lot of brands, and it makes sense that they're investing in having that experience built out. Given the fact that you have this platform, I know you provide this service to a few very large, well-known brands. Would love to have you walk us through that process and how is it designed to extend this product capability to brands and enable them to have a resale experience for themselves.
When we started to have a lot of traction and we're scaling, found our product market fit on both sides of our marketplace, we started to get more outreach from other brands that sort of were sustainability forward, know that there was value creation for both their business and the customer, and wanted to be a part of it. We realized that not only were our operations technology proprietary, but we also knew it could be white labeled. We could power this same brands, typically call them take back programs, where brands send bags to their customers, and then it's branded as Madewell. It's branded as that brand, but it actually comes back to us and we process it. All of the communication looks like it's from Madewell, but it's us behind the scenes. And this is credit to our CEO. He invented Resale-as-a-Service, the name, the thinking to white label what our operational capabilities had become. And it's been great. There are some brands to partner with, like Madewell, there's just a big overlap on our missions. But the other thing is that like brands, that's not their strength, right? That's not in their wheelhouse. Most of them use a 3PL, and it's sort of like a generic 3PL that can ship things, and then the returns maybe is the same 3PL, maybe it's someone else. And so they don't specialize in that type of technology. They don't specialize in people who know how to handle our operations at scale. And so it's good for them, but it's also good for us as well. And then there's the other side of it, which is resale shops. If, for example, Madewell had a bunch of jeans that were used that they want to sell on their website, they don't want to have to store those. They don't want to deal with all of the hard things that exist about shopping used clothes online. And so we have sort of multiple offerings that we can enable for brands. And it all came from the extension of the technology and the operations that we put in, similar to how AWS for Amazon, they had built that technology for them. And then at some point, they're like, hey, this is a platform that is powerful and can be white labeled for others. Resale-as-a-Service for us is the white labeling to power resale for others in a very similar way to what Amazon did with AWS.
And it also gives the brands the brand control, right? Like at the end of the day, why not use that opportunity from a brand perspective, be it Madewell, saying, hey, while you are on my site, do you have anything to return and I can give you a credit against it? Or whatever that model they might end up choosing, still keeping the brand control to bring the product back in, again, through a service, and be able to kind of manage that as to what the entire experience of the brand, even if it's pre-owned, pre-loved, whichever way you might want to define it, it is still a controlled experience. And you are also gaining the intelligence around the consumer itself. So it's like a win-win across the board from all perspective. I see this space evolving quite rapidly. I also see the struggle with the social media attention grabbing, right? Like the dollars you have to spend from a social media attention grabbing perspective. I see the agentic future as well of shoppers, right? Where that attention of what people end up buying. And I think there is going to be a lot of winning in this case. The engines are going to start looking at these products as they become available and discoverable. You see the big bets some of these companies are putting behind how shopping is going to occur and some of the investments going in from even OpenAI as an example. I think this space is probably one of the largest from an expansion standpoint as I see it, from a new category of buyers kind of coming in because they are shopping agents that are helping them discover things they didn't know of.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that is the future. I think we've had for probably 15 years, e-commerce, like the standard flow is you have a homepage, maybe you do a search, you go to some listings, and there's a product details page, there's a cart page, and there's checkout. That's like the funnel as it's existed for close to 20 years. I think that is going to be broken down over the next few years. I think that you will, whether it is ChatGPT or like brands like ThredUp that sort of invest into their platforms, I think you will have a certain level of personalization where you know exactly what they want, what they're feeling, what their size is, how they think about different brands, and where the agents can find what you're looking for on your behalf. And I think it'll probably start as something as simple as, yes, this is right, buy this, and it handles the whole flow for you. People know about OpenAI working with Shopify. They're also working with Visa when it comes to agentic tokenization of payment options. This is where they're headed. This is where we are investing a lot of our R&D into as well. We have to wait for the customer to be there. I don't think they're fully there yet for agents buying on their behalf, but we know that the shopping journey is going to be fundamentally different a year from now, 2 years from now. I think we are sort of on the same wavelength when it comes to how agentic AI can eliminate a lot of the friction, reduce time, and come to the same, if not better, outcome.
I love it. But I'm also scared. Like when it knows emotionally, when I'm at a state that I'm going to make a purchase, it might just send me a message, be like, what do you think about these pair of shoes, right? Be like, let's just buy it.
Yeah, we'll have to have the right controls in place. But there was a time when people were scared to buy online. They're like, how do I trust this place? Are they going to send it to me? Is it what they say it is? And so I think that right now, that is out of the mainstream comfort zone. But I do think we will get there. And I think to your point, it will start with certain controls in place. Do not make a purchase on my behalf without my consent. I want to review before you purchase. But if technology improves, as the agents get better and it's actually meeting exactly what the customer is thinking, at a certain point, be like, yep, you can just ship a box to me every month. You don't have to show me in advance.
I love it.
Hey, Dan, I think you're going to be talking a little bit about this at Shoptalk Fall in a few weeks. You can tell our audience a little bit about what AI can do, can't do, a session.
I think that every company really needs to think about what are the biggest problems that they have not been able to solve over the last 5-10 years and push themselves to think how could technology, with what's changed with agentic AI automation and just like generative AI more broadly, what is the future going to look like? And then start to work backwards. If companies aren't doing that, the chat GPTs of the world are going to start eating everyone's lunches. We started that journey 2 years ago. The scary thing is if you haven't started that journey and the rate of change is increasing and the resources that are going into this are increasing, every day you wait, you get further behind. One of the things that a lot of companies do is they want to talk about this new AI offering. Our customers actually don't care about AI at all. They care about, are you making things easier? Are you helping them find what they're looking for faster? It is all about them. They are the main characters when they come onto ThredUp. If your core experience can be improved through AI, why do you need to put AI on the website and the app? Like, that's not going to change the customer's considerations for why they may or may not choose. It's really about the value that you're going to bring to them, the job that they're hiring for you. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that.
I like your approach of thinking of it from the perspective of jobs to be done and being customer obsessed from the perspective of how can I embed the technology so natively that it doesn't matter how it happened. It just is frictionless and it helps them accomplish what they need to do.
Exactly.
Love it. We'll link the sessions that Dan and James will be doing at Shop Talk, as well as the ones that Ninaad and I will be speaking on as well. So hopefully some of our audience members can find us in real life and say hello. Dan, this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you joining us today. Can you tell our audience a little bit about where they can keep up with you, how they can follow you on socials, and how they can get in touch with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, DeMeyere, following ThredUp in our journey. We'll be launching something pretty cool in about a month. Look out for things to come.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And if this episode has sparked any ideas for you from any of the topics we touched on today, whether it was about data, AI, or the culture of innovation, please share it with someone that you think can benefit from it. And follow the show. We drop these playbooks on a weekly basis. And I love talking to folks doing amazing work in the industries. Always welcome your input on who should be featured on the podcast next. Thank you again, everyone. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.